All right, welcome back to the Ireland Contracting Nightly Sports Call. This is our GMC tweet of the night. Basically, Derek Carr, he's benched and he left the team. This is from Adam Schefter talking about they decided to bench Derek Carr. And then you find out a little bit later, a few hours later, that he's leaving the team. So what happens now, Chris, to Derek Carr? I'm sure there's going to be a couple teams out there that are going to want him.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Raiders are going to try to execute a high wire trade. I won't bore our listeners with, mainly because they're hard to keep straight in my own head, the details of his contract and when it vests and what happens if they want to trade him but they can't. The bottom line is it's clear Josh McDaniels is moving on. I would say this, though, about Derek Carr. In all the years he's been with the Raiders, Richie, he's not had a defense in front of him or on the opposite side, if you will, that's been better than 20th in the league. I'm not saying Derek Carr doesn't deserve some of the scrutiny for their problems or maybe even a majority of it, but he has literally never played on a well-balanced football team where both sides of the ball, as Mike Tomlin is so fond of saying, play complementary football. Team's going to want him, and I do think he's one of those players who is intriguing if he gets a change of scenery to a more stable franchise, because I think when Derek Carr gets going, he can match touchdown for touchdown with just about anybody in the league. We've seen him do it with no less than Patrick Mahomes on the other side of the field.
Yeah, definitely intriguing to me, and I'm interested what happens to him this offseason. But on paper, I mean, look, he had all the talent in the world this year. You thought this was going to be a playoff contending team. When you look at the beginning of the year, I mean, you looked at the West and you thought the Raiders actually had a chance to win that division.
Well, I think the thing that didn't happen right off the bat for them that people thought would because they were college teammates is it took him a while to get some chemistry with Devontae Adams built back up. Josh Jacobs has been awesome this year. He's leading the league in yards from scrimmage. He's leading the league in rushing yards. But that situation there and that team, I think, Richie, is one of those examples in sports, but in this case, specifically in the NFL, where the sum of the parts or the whole is actually less than the sum of the parts, I should say. You know, usually you want the whole to be greater than the sum of the parts. A team that when it coalesces, it comes together, it creates something special. The Raiders are the opposite. They can kind of collect all these baseball cards, so to speak, and yet it doesn't ever work out the way it seems like it should on paper.
All right, let's go out to Bob. He's calling from a place called Sports City. I don't know where that is, Bob, but I'm anxious to hear your question.
Create something special. The Raiders are the opposite. They can kind of
Bob,
turn off your TV.
I don't know
your
where
TV, Bob.
Sports City must be a far place away.
Hello.
Sports City. You're calling from Echoville or Sports City?
Fort City.
Okay. Oh, Ford
City.
Ford City. Okay. All right, go ahead, Bob.
I worked with Special Olympics with Franco Harris for a long time. I was on the state board of directors of Franco Harris of Special Olympics for a good while, and become personal friends. And here in June, I was diagnosed with stomach cancer, and some kind of way he got a hold of me. I hadn't had him a long time. He called me and talked to me, and he was telling me that I had to fight it, and he was just that kind of guy, you know. After then, he said, hang in there, you're a big boy. And I'm 85 years old now myself. And he says, you'll live longer, just hang in there.
Bob, I really appreciate that call. I know we got a lot of these calls last week after people hearing Franco passed away. But it seems like, Chris, everyone has a story about Franco, and a good story like this. He's touched so many lives. Just random people have come up to me to tell me stories about what Franco said to them or did to them, like this one right here with Bob in Ford City. I mean, he went out of his way to call him after finding out that he had stomach cancer. I mean, that just goes to show you what kind of guy Franco Harris was.
One of the cruelest things about death, besides that it takes, from the living and takes away a family member, a father, a husband in Franco's case, and obviously a pillar of the community in Franco's case, we're finding out, is that while people might share these stories amongst each other, oh, you wouldn't believe what a great guy Franco is, and he called me after he found out that I had taken ill with stomach cancer in this particular case, you don't actually hear about most of this. You don't have cause or opportunity to hear about most of this stuff unless the person passes away. So that's sort of one of the cruel ironies here. we're hearing a lot of things that if Franco was alive today, we still wouldn't know about him. There'd be stories that would still be, people would just be keeping to themselves that they wouldn't be calling in for because, well, why would we be asking for stories about what a great guy Franco is? He's right there. We can go and see him and talk to him and everything. So that's another cruel irony of this whole situation that hasn't been lost on me these last several days.
Yeah, a handful of players today went to Franco's funeral. Pat Freiermuth, Cam Hayward. I know Najee Harris were 3 of the 6 guys, I think, the players that missed practice today to go to his private funeral this afternoon. All right, let's go out to Jack in Jacksonville. How you doing, Jack?
Yeah, it was reporting the Steelers still have a 2% chance of making it if Moon is in the 7th house of Jupiter lines with Mars. What do you guys think?
2%. I still think it's like a -%. I think Miami's going to win. I know you gave me a stat earlier that, they can't win without Tua. But I think Miami's going to win one of these last 2 games, and it's over for the Steelers. I know it's a 2% chance, and the door's slightly open, but I don't have a good feeling. They need too many things to happen, and don't discount the Jets here. I mean, because the Jets have to lose, and if they don't lose this week, they have to tie. Something crazy needs to happen for the Steelers to get in.
It's not super complicated, though, what has to happen. So the Patriots need to win this game against the Dolphins, and then they need to lose to the Bills, which is absolutely plausible, although the Bills might not have anything to play for, so you never know. The Jets need to lose this week and then beat the Dolphins, and that would mean that the Dolphins would have lost 2 straight, and then the Steelers need to win out. There's a lot of things that have to happen, but that whole 2% thing is one of those deals, Richie, where if the first set of conditions are met this week, i.e. Patriots win and Jets lose and the Steelers win, well, suddenly that percentage chance is going to jump into like probably the 20s, maybe even the low 30s. And then it becomes, can the Jets then beat the Dolphins, which if Mike White's playing and Tua's not, I think they absolutely can. Can the Bills just out-talent the Patriots? I think they absolutely can. And can the Steelers beat a Browns team that still doesn't really know what the heck it's doing with Deshaun Watson under center? That's plausible too. I'm not saying it's likely, but it's not like some set of, 15 circumstances that have to happen. I just laid out the exact scenarios that you need to be cheering for.
All right, so what's the least likely thing to happen? The Steelers winning 2 games? Miami losing 2 games?
I actually feel like it's less likely, or I guess, less likely that the Steelers win 2 than it is that Miami loses 2. I still think that this Ravens game coming up, and I swear I'm not saying this, Richie, because I'm wearing purple today for inexplicable reasons. I think this Ravens game is going to be tough. I think there's a temptation to be very excited about what Kenny Pickett did on that final drive against the Raiders, but this will be a road game against a team that physically battered him and knocked him out of the game very early last time they met. That's going to be in the back of his mind. And it's a Ravens team that, unlike the Raiders, won't be that sloppy and won't beat itself, even with Tyler Huntley at quarterback.
All right, let's go out to Frank and Moon. How you doing, Frank?
How you doing? Hey, Chris, how are you?
Hey.
Chris, first of all, I was say I'm a graduate of Moon High School, played basketball there, so I'm a fan because your wife went there. And second of all, when are we going to talk about Dumoulin? He is not there's something wrong with him, either mentally, physically, or whatever. He's not playing up to his potential, and I think it needs to be addressed by you, the team, and everyone around.
Well, Frank, I got bad news for you. The problem with Dumoulin, I'm serious. The problem with Dumoulin is he's just not very good anymore. Sometimes this happens to guys. I think sometimes you see a guy just hit the end of the line, and I think we're so accustomed now, especially with the Penguins, that their core 3 are all in their mid-30s and still performing at a high level. There's the expectation that other guys are going to continue to play well into their 30s also. The truth of the matter is hockey players who aren't like elite all-timers like those 3 are, to one degree or another, tend to have shorter careers. When they actually start to lose it, it goes, and it goes quick. And as much as Dumoulin was a guy people loved because he was so steady for so long, he absolutely falls into the basket of when it goes, it can go really quick.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing in the league for nearly a decade, so that sometimes happens. All right, we got to take a break. Back to wrap things up coming up next. Stay right there.